Imagine traveling abroad to your dream country for school, only to end up bagging 26 years in prison for a crime you did not commit. That was Amanda Knox's reality 20 years ago in Italy. And yes, she has finally been proclaimed not guilty, but what she went through. The trials, the media circus, the absolute hell? Horrendous. This is a twisted tale that we're talking about, because it proves the system is broken and that injustice can happen to anyone. We're running through season 1 of the Amanda Knox's story, focusing on the moment a young life was derailed, and why her fight, even now, is a vital motivation for every other innocent person fighting for their freedom. Let's get into it. The story begins with a girl named Amanda Knox, who's a bit of an outcast but in a cool, quirky way. She's always been unique, and her parents' divorce when she was a kid just made her feel even more authentic. At 19, she gets to live her dream of studying in Italy, and for a brief moment, her divorced parents even come together to see her off. Her new life in Perugia is awesome. She's on her own, living in a villa with 3 roommates, and she quickly finds her rhythm. She gets a job at a bar she's studying, and she falls hard for a charming Italian guy named Raffaele Solicito. With him and her new roommate Meredith Kircher, she feels like she can finally be herself. But all that happiness is super fragile. One day, she goes back to her apartment to grab a mop before a trip with Raffaele. The place is eerily quiet. She notices some weird things right away. The front door is open, there's a bloody bath mat and blood in the bathroom sink, and, weirdest of all, there's unflushed poop in the toilet. This makes her think someone broke in. She tries to open Meredith's door, but it's locked, and her other roommate Filomena's room has been ransacked. Freaked out, she calls her mom, Raffaele, and Filomena. When Raffaele shows up, the toilet has been flushed, which gives Amanda this awful feeling that the intruder was there with her. They call Raffaele's sister, who's a police officer, but then 2 other cops randomly show up, saying they found a phone with Filomena's SIM card. One cop gets a bad feeling this is serious and wants to help, but the other basically says, "Not my problem." When Filomena and some guys from downstairs get back, they break down Meredith's door. That's when they find Meredith's body. She's been brutally murdered and sexually assaulted. Since Amanda doesn't speak much Italian, she's completely lost and terrified as all this chaos unfolds. The cops on the case, especially the lead investigator Valentina Greco, seem to have it out for Amanda from the start. Greco thinks it's suspicious that Amanda isn't crying hysterically, and that Raffaele is being affectionate with her. Then there's the prosecutor, Giuliano Magnini, a guy who thinks his cases are a divine mission and is still haunted by a past serial killer case. They latch onto a seemingly small lie. Amanda says the toilet was flushed, but the cops find the poop still there. They think she's lying, and that makes her a suspect. Everyone else is cleared. Meredith's boyfriend, the other roommates, the guys downstairs. The British friends of Meredith, who apparently already disliked Amanda, tell the cops that Amanda is promiscuous. Then, her roommate Laura urges Amanda to lie to the police about their shared habit of smoking weed, which they got from the guys downstairs. Laura is scared of Italy's strict drug laws, and Amanda, naive and trusting, agrees to protect her friend. During her interrogation, the police deny her a translator at first. When one finally shows up, they focus on why she showered after seeing blood. Amanda tries to explain that she thought it might be menstrual blood, but the poop was what really scared her. They let her go but tell her to come back. Unbeknownst to her, they've tapped her phone. How's it that easy to tap phone in Italy? She naively tells her mom she doesn't need a lawyer, even though her mom is pushing for it. Fast forward to 2022. Amanda is now a married mom herself. Against her mother's wishes, she goes back to Italy. Her mission? To confront Giuliano Magnini, the very man she believes ruined her life, even though it puts her at risk of being prosecuted again. So this is the second part of the story, told from the perspective of the investigators, specifically the prosecutor, Giuliano Magnini. First off, the 2 cops who showed up out of nowhere at the start of the story. Turns out, a woman had found 2 phones outside her house and called them in. The SIMs were registered to Filomena, but the phones actually belonged to the dead girl, Meredith. The cops thought it was super suspicious that Amanda and Raffaele looked shocked to see them, even though they had just called the police themselves. Like, who wouldn't be surprised if you just hung up from calling the cops and they magically appeared minutes later? It's a dumb point, but okay, let's keep going. They check out Filomena's room, which they think is the entry point because of a broken window with a rock nearby. But Magnini has a hunch the break-in was a setup. Why? The bad guy didn't steal anything valuable, and it would have been really hard to climb up to a top-floor apartment and throw a rock through a window without leaving any footprints or scuff marks on the outside of the building. Then things get even more complicated. The cops find a second crime scene, blood in the apartment downstairs where the boys live. There's no body, but it looks like a fight happened. And, oh yeah, they find the weed the boys were growing. The boys' alibi checks out. They were out of town with family, but someone still got into their apartment, and there's no sign of a break-in. The boys claim Meredith had a key to feed their cat, and that Amanda and Meredith would come over to chill and smoke weed. When the cops ask Amanda about it, she denies it, because her roommate Laura told her to lie about it. And just like that, Amanda looks like a liar in their eyes. Valentina and a female interrogator are already convinced Amanda is the killer. They cook up a theory that she was the only one who knew Meredith had the key to the boy's apartment, so she must have stolen it and killed her. And since she couldn't have done it alone, her boyfriend Raffaele must have helped. During the investigation, they find a hair on Meredith's floor that belongs to a black man. So the focus shifts to finding out who he is. One of the boys mentions that a black guy who plays basketball with them sometimes could be the one. Amanda doesn't know anything about any black guy, but then she absentmindedly brushes her hair aside, revealing a bruise on her neck. The cops immediately jump to the conclusion that she got it from a fight with Meredith, without even asking her. After a grueling interrogation, they let Amanda go, because she has to get to work. She tells her boss Patrick, who's also black, and also knew Meredith, that she's quitting. With a killer on the loose, she doesn't feel safe. Their easy banter shows they have a good relationship. With no leads on the black man, Valentina decides to take Amanda back to the crime scene. They think the bruise on her neck is proof that she killed Meredith, so they want to see how she reacts. Amanda, who's already traumatized, doesn't want to go in, but Valentina is so mean to her that she has no choice. When they open the knife cabinet, Amanda immediately starts crying and covering her head. Valentina's face basically says, "Gotcha," like that's how a guilty person acts. And remember, all this is happening after more than 14 hours of nonstop questioning. Meredith's throat was slit, by the way. Later that night, with barely any sleep, Raffaele gets a call to come in for more questioning. Amanda tags along because she doesn't want to be alone. Big mistake. The cops, who have been listening to her phone calls, know her mom is flying in the next day, which means Amanda is about to lawyer up. They use this as a deadline to corner her. They have a cop befriend her, and then the really horrible interrogation begins. There's no translator at first, and the female cop is completely unsympathetic. She grills Amanda about every single minute of the day before Meredith died, trying to poke holes in her story. No matter what Amanda says, the cop calls her a liar, or gets angrier. When the translator finally arrives, things just get worse. Her phone was off the night Meredith died. Amanda explains she had the day off and wanted time with Raffaele, without being bothered. At this point, her mom is calling nonstop, but they won't let her pick up. When she tries to go to the restroom to catch her breath and call her mom, her phone is confiscated as evidence. On it, they find a text to Patrick that says, "See you later," but the earlier messages are not there. Amanda clarifies it's just her replying to his message giving her the day off, and that she sometimes deletes messages to free up space. But the cops don't buy it. They think "see you later" means they had a plan to meet and kill Meredith. Even when Amanda explains that "see you later" is like saying bye in the US, they refuse to listen. Realizing Amanda has an explanation for everything, a cop comes in claiming Raffaele admitted Amanda wasn't with him all night, blowing up her alibi. The pressure builds, and after hours of questioning and some physical abuse, they hit her head a few times. Her mind gets foggy. The cops already have their story ready, that Amanda and Patrick killed Meredith, and they just want her to confirm it. When Magnini shows up, Amanda, exhausted and confused, signs a statement blaming Patrick and herself. When she clears her head later, she tries to walk it back, telling the interrogator she made a mistake. But it's too late. And just like that, Amanda, Patrick, and Raphael are arrested for Meredith's murder, even though there's nothing at the crime scene that points to them. The second crime scene at the boys' apartment, they just rule it out, claiming the blood belonged to a cat. Amanda's mom, Etta, arrives in Italy just in time to see the news reporting her daughter is a criminal. The situation with Amanda's arrest is so overwhelming that no one even stops to think about how she's actually feeling. She just lost a friend she was starting to get really close to, but all those normal, sweet memories of them getting fake tattoos and talking about boys are just gone, replaced by a total nightmare. After the police basically bullied her into confessing, she's sent to Capan prison. She's terrified but still so naive that she wonders if it's a witness protection place. But that idea is quickly crushed. The moment she has to strip, and then is questioned by this creepy warden about her sex life, with him even trying to say the bruise on her neck is from an orgy, she realizes this is a sick game to get her to say something incriminating. Even her mom, Etta, is given a hard time. The police, because Amanda and her mom have different last names, delay their meeting for as long as they can. When they finally see each other, it's the first real comfort Amanda has felt. Etta, of course, is worried and wants to be sure her daughter is innocent. Amanda swears she is, even telling her mom that the police will have to apologize once they figure out their mistake. But of course, their whole conversation is recorded, and that comment is twisted to make her seem cold and arrogant. To get why Giuliano Magnini is so obsessed with her case, you have to look at his past. He grew up in a really religious home right next to a women's prison, with his mom warning him about how tricky women can be. When his dad died young, he became the man of the house, watching Western movies that gave him this weird idea of being a tough guy who had to protect everyone. He felt it was his mission to fix the world. What really got to him was the monster of Florence serial killer, who went after couples. Magnini became obsessed with the idea that the killer was part of a cult, and he saw evil everywhere. Even after the killer died, he couldn't let go, and when the media made fun of his theories, it just made him more determined to prove he was right. So when Meredith's murder happened, he saw it as a sign. The brutal way she died hit him hard, and he took the case on as a personal mission. The police rushed things with a press conference proclaiming the case is closed after Amanda's confession. But with no real evidence, and 3 people already in jail, Magnini is under pressure to deliver a solid case. 3 days before he has to go in front of a judge, he has nothing. His theory? Amanda is some sex freak who got Patrick and Raphael involved in a messed up orgy that ended with Meredith's death. But the evidence doesn't back him up. The coroner, Luca Lalli, finds no proof of rape and can't even confirm the time of death because the police made him wait so long that the body went cold. When Lalli speaks to the press about it, Magnini goes crazy. He insists a condom was found at the scene, doubles down on his theory, and has Lalli fired. Then he gets what he thinks is his lucky break. A DNA test on a knife from Raffaele's kitchen comes back with DNA from both Meredith and Amanda. But come on, is Amanda's DNA on her boyfriend's knife really surprising? The Meredith part is less clear. Honestly, it makes Raffaele look more suspicious than Amanda, since they've only been dating for a few weeks. The police's games get even more twisted. They lie to Amanda that she's tested positive for HIV, then instruct her to write down a list of all her past sexual partners. This is a sick trick to mess with her head, right before a big hearing. At the hearing, Magnini attacks her, yelling because she admits that her confession was just what the police had told her to say. With protests breaking out over the wrongful arrest of Patrick Lumumba, Magnini decides the easiest move is to accuse Amanda of lying about him. When she gets back to her cell, it has been completely ransacked, and her journals, including the list of partners, are stolen. For the first time, she turns on the TV and sees the whole world talking about Foxy Knoxy. The police have fed the media a story about a promiscuous, depraved young woman who was part of a sick game. But Giuliano's world is about to fall apart. The DNA from the bloody fingerprints in Meredith's room doesn't match Raffaele or Patrick. It's proof that someone else was there. So even though Magnini has managed to ruin Amanda's reputation all over the world, he is nowhere near solving the murder of Meredith Kircher. We meet Rudy Guide, or as he's been called, the Baron, the guy who used to play basketball with the boys. You can tell right away that this guy is a different kind of crazy. He's the type to break into a kindergarten just for a nap, and when a teacher finds him with a knife, he's totally unfazed. That's a guy far more likely to commit a crime than Amanda, Raffaele, or Patrick. The police, who had already caused a huge uproar by arresting Patrick, now have to let him go. But then Rudy Guide's DNA shows up all over the crime scene. The police quickly jump on it, getting one of his friends to help them track him down in Germany. He insists the whole story they're spreading about him is wrong. Not only does he deny killing Meredith, but he also claims he actually tried to help her. With his DNA everywhere, though, the police don't believe him. What's even crazier is that Rudy, who must have seen the witch hunt against Amanda on the news, feels the need to tell his friend she wasn't even there and is innocent. But of course, a statement like that, coming from a man who is about to be arrested and convicted, does nothing to help Amanda. Did Valentina ever go to jail? She's so infuriating. The other cop is a little swayed when Rudy says Amanda is innocent, but Valentina just keeps hammering on that nothing has changed, and that the guy could just be protecting her. Seriously, what level of jealousy is this? Or is she just trying to save face by making sure she's right? Now let's get into the trial. You've got Kurt Knox, Amanda's dad, going head-to-head with the savage reporters. He's furious and wants to fight back, maybe even get a PR team. But Amanda's mom thinks they should stay silent and not give the media any more power. Amanda is up against a wild, prejudiced trial. The jury isn't sequestered. They go home every night and watch the news about her. Her lawyers, who have come to believe in her innocence, make the logical but ultimately disastrous decision to let the press into the courtroom. They think if the media just sees the real Amanda, everything will change. But the trial is pure chaos. It's not just about Meredith's murder. There's a slander charge against Amanda from Patrick's lawyers because of her coerced confession, another charge from Meredith's family, and another from the villa landlady, all happening at the same time. The whole thing is a mess, and the police just lie through their teeth, claiming they were kind and professional during her interrogation, burying the truth about how they heckled and hit her. But the most ridiculous thing is when Meredith's British friend, Sophie Purton, gets on the stand. She gives the hungry media exactly what they want, talking about the vibrator Amanda used to leave lying around, and her very open sex life. It's so frustrating to watch an insignificant detail get blown up, just to feed the public's thirst for something salacious. So Amanda, on her lawyer's advice, decides to just be herself. And the first time she speaks in front of the press, she inadvertently gives them all the headlines they need. She talks about the vibrator, expecting the court to be reasonable about a joke between friends, but the press hears only one word: sex. That's the word that makes the false narrative against her sell so well. Nobody on Amanda's side could have done anything differently for a different outcome. They are a small group, but they've never once doubted her. Even Raffaele, who was bullied into denying she was with him, tells her how sorry he is for not being able to protect her. Amanda is advised by Don Solo, the prison pastor, to show her wholesome heart in court, but she's up against an evil that doesn't care about her heart. Her decision to wear a shirt that says "all you need is love" and smile as she enters court is wildly misinterpreted. To the media and the public, it's not a sign of hope, it's arrogance. They hold her against her quirks, her bubbly personality, her way of dealing with anxiety by being goofy, and receiving affection from her boyfriend. She's the type to focus on the good things, not dwell on the sadness, and they just can't seem to understand that. But the biggest heartbreak is when Philomena, the girl Amanda thought was her friend, gets on the stand. A flashback shows how tight they all used to be, Philomena even hand-feeding her pasta. But trauma makes people do strange things. Philomena was the first to see Meredith's body, and when the police turned Amanda into a monster, Philomena projected all her fear and trauma onto the girl she used to adore. She blows up little arguments, and even lies about Amanda working her charms on boys to get free weed. One of the theories the prosecution wanted to pass off as proven fact is the staged break-in. Philomena is pressured to say she locked the window before leaving the house on the day of Meredith's murder. But all it takes for Philomena to admit the verifiable truth is the right question from Amanda's lawyers. Philomena admits that the window wasn't in great shape, and that it could have opened on its own even if she'd locked it. Nothing works in that house. They should be suing the landlady, not the other way around. Anyway, that brings us back to Rudy. It turns out Amanda did see him once, when she and Meredith went to get some pot. He was hanging out with the boys and was clearly into her, but she wasn't interested. Later that night, we see him checking out that window Philomena talked about. And remember, this guy already had a record for break-ins, burglary, and violence against women. He's the one who broke into the villa. After ransacking the place, he even uses their toilet, then panics when someone comes home and forgets to flush. Minutes later, he's in the bathroom scrubbing bloody shoes, then rushing into the boys' room downstairs with Meredith's keys. Remember, the boys said they gave Meredith their house key to feed their cat. After that, he dumps her phones like it's nothing. Yet, his trial was super fast, and not nearly as sensationalized. As Amanda's mom points out, he just isn't as interesting to the media. Her mom even tried getting her daughter to wear a cross to kind of appear God-fearing or something. But Amanda is an atheist and wouldn't fake anything for sympathy. In the end, Amanda and Raffaele, the only two people who had absolutely nothing to do with Meredith's tragic death, are paying the price. We meet Raffaele at a defining moment in his life, when his father, Francesco, left his mother. As a child, Raffaele took it upon himself to be his mother's emotional support, growing up into a sweet, unselfish guy who always wanted to be there for people. This inherent goodness is exactly what makes him vulnerable to the police. During the brutal interrogation after Meredith's murder, the officers twist everything, pitting Raffaele and Amanda against each other. Because Amanda mentions that Raffaele's father calls him every night, the police lie and claim she said he took a call from his dad on the night of the murder. This simple, calculated lie makes Raffaele doubt himself, and in a state of terror, he gives them what they want, his admission that Amanda could have left his house that night. But the police are only getting started. They then claim his sneakers match bloody footprints found at the crime scene, and in a flicker, Raffaele goes from being an invisible guy to a primary suspect. In the Terni prison, Raffaele finds himself in a living hell. But he has the strength to hold on for justice. The police's narrative is set in stone from the moment they take his sneakers. They go through his things and misinterpret his Japanese manga and pocket knives as signs of a sick freak, making him out to be a twisted maniac. His attorney, Julia, easily exposes the investigators' incompetence. They claim a knife from Raffaele's kitchen is the murder weapon, but the evidence is flimsy and mishandled. The police officer even admits he just picked it up, threw it in a dirty bag, and sent it to forensics. Mignini, the prosecutor, doesn't care about playing fair, purposely withholding the DNA analysis for months. Raffaele's father, Francesco, is furious over the way the police are manipulating the press, using a trick to make a photo of the crime scene look bloodier than it was. He even goes on national TV to prove that his son's shoes don't match the footprints, but the police strike back by claiming they found Raffaele's DNA on Meredith's bra. The prosecution's theatrics, with a long-titled forensic scientist and a physical bra, convince the jury that Raffaele is some kind of sex freak and a monster. Through it all, Raffaele and Amanda find comfort in writing to each other. Even when his own family, his dad and his police officer sister Vanessa, urge him to cut ties with Amanda because her image is that of an evil witch, Raffaele doesn't believe in abandoning people. However, their letters also highlight a deep emotional imbalance. Raffaele is still holding on to the hope that they will be together when all this is over. He really likes the girl, But Amanda isn't in the headspace for romance right now. She eventually has to end it, wanting just to be friends. The rejection is a huge blow to Raffaele, who is heartbroken. His sister Vanessa, who has just lost her job, is devastated to see him so crushed he can't even care about his own potential conviction. It's a sad moment, had me bawling. He is made for far softer things than this. Raffaele's desire to protect Amanda is directly tied to his childhood, where he was the one who had to be there for his alcoholic mother. He had seen his father leave his mother as a choice that destroyed lives, and he swore he would never be that person. His mother's passing, after he had finally left home on his sister's advice to pursue his own life in Perugia, weighed so heavily on him. Maybe if he had just stayed home, none of this would have ever happened. The legal arguments come to a head when the defense lawyers tear apart the police's case. They show that the DNA evidence is contaminated, and that the theory about the bra is illogical. They find no blood on Raffaele's knife. The trace of Meredith's DNA on the knife is so minute that the DNA analyst, Dr. Ippolito, has to manually override the machine, which contaminates the evidence. The co-prosecutor's theory about Meredith's bra having been ripped and cut apart during the forced sexual assault is torn to shreds by Julia's simple logic. The fabric was found in a place it wasn't originally, and it couldn't have moved by itself. So it's most likely someone stepped on it, as it was under the rug, and it was dragged by someone's shoe, which would both contaminate it and crush the hook, making it look like it had been ripped apart. But none of it matters. Magnini's closing argument is a horrifying and wildly fictitious story. He claims Amanda has a deep-seated hatred for Meredith over conflicts like not cleaning or bringing men home. Then one day, Amanda brings the Baron and Raffaele home, the Baron sexually assaults Meredith, Raffaele is Amanda's puppet, and Amanda kills her. He even shows a video representation of the night of the murder, which shouldn't be allowed. Still, the judges let the prosecutors proceed. The court and the entire country have already made up their minds. In a complete betrayal of justice, Amanda is sentenced to 26 years in prison, and Raffaele to 25. I would lose my mind. Mind you, getting this trial took 2 years. They were never going to win, because the police and prosecution are determined to lock them away. The judge doesn't even allow for an independent review of the DNA analysis. Bro. The only sensible person in the crowd is Meredith's sister, who, at the press conference, mourns her sister's death but doesn't relish the end of 2 young lives. The truth of that night is far simpler than the prosecution's horrific story. After watching a movie and having dinner, Amanda and Raffaele talk about his mother, who had died of a broken heart when his father was to be remarried. Raffaele is only just beginning to forgive himself for wanting a life of his own, and being locked up is the last thing he deserves. After the judge reads out her sentence, Amanda's whole world crashes down. They let her hug her family, but she's too dizzy with shock to even process it. She goes into her cell, kicking and screaming, the horrifying reality that her life has been stolen from her setting in. Warden Banty limits family visits to 10-minute weekly slots, the only time she allows herself to cry. But even seeing her sister is agonizing, because talking about school just reminds Amanda that her life might be over before it even started. She can't understand Don Saulo's attempts to comfort her with talk of God's plan. When Kurt visits, she's too much of a mess to process the good news about a new PR team and DNA experts. Her desperate plea for freedom makes her father break down, and she is instantly consumed by guilt. At her lowest, she contemplates suicide, but the morbid thought that the police would twist her death to prove her guilt stops her. She decides she must persevere, if only to stop them from lying about her ever again. Her natural instinct to survive eventually kicks in. Warden Banty puts her with another American prisoner, Cecilia, who gives her a much-needed reality check. She's not alone. It reminds her that everyone there has lost a life they left behind. Her mother, Etta, clings desperately to the hope of an appeal, which could take up to 3 years. But Amanda realizes she can't live suspended on hope alone, and accepts the possibility of spending much of her adulthood behind bars. This breaks her mother's heart, who believes Amanda's spark is gone. However, Amanda's spark is not gone. She keeps it alive with yoga, friendships, and listening to the stories of her fellow inmates. Cecilia helps her manage her mail, and a key letter comes from Saul, an interrogation expert, who recognizes the telltale signs that the police manipulated her statement. This major boost gives her a new fire. When her stepdad, Chris, visits, he sees that fire back in her eyes. With her new confidence and fluency in Italian, she walks into the warden's office and demands the judge's report and everything on her case. They can't intimidate her anymore. Her friendship with Raffaele is still intact, even after their breakup, and she excitedly calls him to share Saul's news. But Raffaele, knowing the Italian court better, delivers the bad news. The court is too stuck up to allow an American expert like Saul to testify, and there are no Italian experts in the field. The interrogation angle is a dead end. Raffaele shares other news, though. Magnini finally faced indictment for abuse of office, illegal wiretapping, and misconduct in the Monster of Florence case. It's no surprise he only gets a week-long suspension, but the gross hypocrisy is that he remains an active prosecutor and is still pushing for harsher sentences for her and Raffaele. But Magnini no longer scares Amanda. Don Saulo, who knows Magnini, confronts him with subtle sarcasm, pointing out Magnini's privilege. So much misconduct, and he still gets to keep his job. Don Saulo also lets him know that Amanda is innocent. After 4 seemingly endless years, Amanda and her lawyers finally get another shot. This time, the prosecution can't hog the stage. 2 DNA experts absolutely demolish Dr. Ippolito's questionable analysis, showing the DNA on the knife is far below international protocol to be considered a true positive, and the knife was tested alongside 50 other objects, leaving contamination entirely plausible. Video footage shows investigators contaminating evidence, dirty gloves passing around the bra clasp. The police can't dodge accountability this time. Magnini's closing argument, claiming that no innocent person lies, and using Amanda's false statement about Patrick Lumumba to call her a killer, is pretty weak. But Amanda is different now. She delivers her own closing statement in her fluent Italian, honest and raw. She apologizes to Patrick for the chaos her coerced words caused, she mourns Meredith, and tells the court that being caged for a crime she didn't commit is destroying her. In the end, Amanda is most terrified of Hope. She asks to be sent back to the prison to wait for the verdict, wanting to spend what she hopes is her last night with Don Saulo. He has come to love her as a granddaughter and gives her a Santo Spirito flying dove, a symbol of his faith and freedom. As he asks for one last song on the keyboard, Amanda sings of freedom, proving she's letting herself hope again, praying this time it won't be ripped away. As the world waits for the verdict, the country is fiercely divided, half cheering for Amanda, half rooting for her downfall. Then the news drops. Amanda Knox is free. The court finds her and Raphael innocent on the charges of rape, assault, and murder, though the false accusation against Patrick still stands, but is counted as time served. Outside, the angry crowd sees her as a witch, who escaped justice, and demands the Supreme Court finish the job. It's vicious, and the contrast couldn't be sharper inside the prison, where her fellow inmates are jubilant, chanting Liberta, as she symbolically passes her freedom on. She leaves behind love within those walls, only to step into pure hate outside. She's rushed into a car through a gauntlet of angry crowds, terrified, and the driver's silence doesn't help. When the car suddenly stops, and a strange man opens the door, she braces for the worst, until she realizes it's Steve, the ex-FBI agent protecting her mom. His presence is the first relief she's felt since the verdict, and he takes Amanda and Etta to a safe house for the night. Without that plan, she might not have made it out of Italy alive. She does, though, and after 4 brutal years, she's finally back on American soil, but she doesn't get a minute of peace. Reporters swarm her the second she steps out of the car, and after dreaming of quiet, the last thing she needs is the welcome home party Etta planned. She smiles for everyone's sake, but when the noise is gone, nothing feels the same. Normal has a whole new meaning. The laundry room looks like a futuristic lab, the fridge is a buffet of impossible choices, and the freedom to walk in and out of a room feels alien. Her family notices it too. This Amanda slips into Italian at the dinner table and moves around the house like she's still in prison. She's not their kid anymore, and they don't know who she is. The ordeal has strained Etta and Chris's marriage, and when Etta suggests therapy, Chris shuts it down as if Amanda can just shake prison off. So Etta calls on Madison to help her reintegrate, but being around Madison only reminds Amanda of everything she's lost. MySpace is dead, she knows nothing about Facebook, and her peers have finished school, married, or had kids. It makes her realize the extent of her loss, so she decides to go back to school and move in with Madison, but reporters digging through her mom's trash keep her essentially under house arrest. By Halloween, she's had enough and goes to a party, but the kids she grew up with look at her like a freak. She can't hold a conversation and slips away, until Madison reminds her it's normal. 4 years in a foreign prison changes you, and it makes sense that Italian comes to her quicker than English. When Amanda gets home, though, Etta is hysterical. Someone has been sending red envelopes with explicit threats of torture, and after Steve throws in a tone-deaf, "You used to be fun" comment, Amanda finally snaps. She tells them she's not the same person, she's grown, and she won't let a jobless freak's letters stop her. But even with her acquittal, she isn't really free until the Supreme Court rules, and to the public, she's still a murderer. So she decides to write a book, Waiting to be Heard, not just to tell her story, but to help her parents climb out of the financial hole they dug. Her dad remortgaged his house, and even her grandma's house, to cover legal fees. Just as she's preparing to face the press for the book release, her lawyer Carol calls with devastating news. The court in Florence is reviewing Magnini's theory again. Damn, she can't catch a break. The only comfort is that even if they convict her there, the case still goes to the Supreme Court. The possibility of prison is real, and now everything she says or does can be used as evidence. When she sits for an interview to promote her memoir, the journalist promises to help her, but ends up tearing her apart on live TV. And sure enough, the Florence court sides with Magnini and overturns the acquittal, finding Amanda and Raphael guilty again. She collapses into bed while her lawyers fight, but Etta refuses to give up. Tired of waiting on men, she finds a support group for exonerees, so Amanda can finally be among people who understand. At first, Amanda resists because she doesn't see herself as one of them, But when the man running the conference hugs her, she knows she's found her people. The sheer number of exonerees is terrifying. It could literally happen to anyone, and for the first time, she feels truly understood. Tension peaks again with the Supreme Court's final verdict. Police are already waiting outside Raffaele's apartment to drag him away, and even Meredith's family is siding with Magnini. Against all odds, the Supreme Court clears them both for good. Amanda has fought a serious battle, but even now she can't celebrate like everyone else. She's free, permanently this time, but the official record still claims she was at the murder scene, just not the killer. That lie is unbearable. The world still sees her as creepy at best, and a murderer at worst, and in her mind, there's only one way to kill that lie: go straight to the man who started it all. So Amanda does the unthinkable. She writes to Magnini himself. When Magnini first receives Amanda's letter, through Don Salo, he doesn't read it right away. He keeps it tucked away, but it claws at his mind, and eventually he does read it. She sends him 3 more letters before he finally responds. Meanwhile, she meets Chris, marries him, and gets pregnant, while dealing with the trauma of her time in Italy and the hatred from the people who think she is guilty. Magnini's letters reveal a different side of him to Amanda. She previously confessed in her letter that she saw him as a monster who was out to get her during the trial, but in finding out more about him outside of his work as a prosecutor, she discovered that he was a family man, and just another normal person whose image was largely decided by the media. In his first reply, Magnini doesn't outright apologize to her, but he does tell her to watch Maigret, the fictional French detective, who discusses how a detective must create a story through the evidence in front of him to theorize how a crime may or may not have occurred. In a way, this is Magnini's reasoning for why he needed to invent a story to explain Meredith's death, and why it was important to place Amanda at the center of it all, once she was established as a prime suspect. After a while, when Amanda's daughter is born, and all seems normal in her life, she tells her family that she plans to return to Italy to meet with Magnini, hoping to gain some closure. All of her family members, especially her mother, try to dissuade her from it, reasoning that she has finally moved on, has a family, a daughter, and a good life. They don't see any point in meeting with Magnini, while also expressing their doubts about him, and believing that he could set a trap to have her imprisoned again. Only her husband, Chris, supports her decision wholeheartedly. The part about Rudy Guade going free is also revealed, which is also one of the things that prompted Amanda to make this decision. The other thing was the birth of her daughter, Eureka. Amanda reveals that when Eureka was born, she apologized to her because she knows she has also dragged her daughter into the mess. There will come a time when Eureka discovers the case, and she will have questions that Amanda may not be able to answer. This is why she wants to meet with Magnini, to find some sense of explanation for everything that happened to her. Amanda's sister chides her for being selfish and inconsiderate of her parents' feelings. She reveals that their mother and stepfather's relationship struggled deeply during the trial, and even after Amanda was back home, and by going to Italy, she will be putting them through torture again. However, this does nothing to change Amanda's mind, and later her father decides to support her decision, even if reluctantly. While her mother doesn't approve, she decides to go with Amanda, because the last time she let her daughter go to Italy alone, their lives were changed forever. This brings us back to the opening scene of the first episode. Amanda hides in the back of the car while Chris drives them to the safe house, where Amanda and her mother had spent the night she was released from prison. Amanda has a nightmare of Italian police barging into the house and dragging her back to prison, which shows that her fear hasn't left her even now. The next day, they go to Don Salo's place, where Magnini shows up and Amanda gets to talk to him face to face. Amanda had thought about letting Magnini speak first, but due to Don Salo's prompt, she becomes the first one to put their perspective on the table. Her nervousness shows in her physicality, anticipating which, she wrote down all the things she wanted to say to him in a notebook. She uses the notes to speak about her perception of him, how his image changed for her in recent years. She talks about the years she lost because of the case, and how, despite being exonerated, she still has to deal with people's hatred, because a lot of them believe that she is the murderer. Magnini stops her, pointing out that she's already said most of these things to her in her letters. Speaking of being hated by the public, Magnini reveals that he too has been villainized and has had to suffer hateful things from people. Still, he calls her courageous for reaching out to him and talking to him. He expresses his surprise at her calling him my prosecutor, and how strangely endearing it felt, considering the circumstances. She reveals that it was never supposed to be endearing. She wrote it because there is no substitute for the English expression in Italian, just as there is no Italian substitute for see you later. Magnini realizes that she is talking about the text she sent to Patrick Lumumba, but instead of responding, he takes a break to call someone. Amanda becomes nervous that maybe he is calling the cops, so she tells him to come clean and tell her if she will be arrested. He feels offended at the accusation of laying a trap for her, pointing out that she's the one who wanted to meet. The call that he made was to his wife to remind her to take her pills. The conversation continues as Magnini tries to explain how he tried to do the best with what he'd got, claiming that he was not wrong in believing that she had something to do with the murder. Amanda counter back with, shouldn't the prosecutor's hypothesis be based on the available evidence rather than trying to find evidence that fits the prosecutor's hypothesis? She also tries to counter his argument, citing that there was never any concrete DNA evidence. He blames it on the cops ruining the crime scene and not following the protocol. The talk shifts to the motive and Amanda's alleged connection to Rudy Guade, how he came up with her being in a love triangle with Raphael and Guade, even though there's no evidence of communication except the time he saw her at the boy's apartment. Then his motive of Amanda killing Meredith because she didn't take Amanda trick-or-treating just makes Amanda more sad at how ridiculous his theories were. At the end of it, he asks her what she wants from him. She breaks down and asks why, when he looked at his daughters, he didn't see her. He only saw a monster, without any solid evidence. She asks him why he came after her, and yet again he says that he believed he was right back then. But now that he knows her, he wouldn't prosecute her. When she asks him if he thinks she is innocent, he stands by his position in the past, but he does admit that he could have been wrong. He tells her that at the end of the day there are two truths, one of which is the one that is proven in the court of law. She retorts that there is only one truth, and it is that she is innocent. Magnini tells her that today is his father's death anniversary. He remembers his father as an honest man of the law, who was killed in an accident by two people who didn't follow the rules and ended up killing him. This led him to develop a thing for rules and how they must be followed or how people should behave under any given circumstances. He tells her that she is not alone in her suffering, as he too has suffered greatly, and she acknowledges his suffering. Their meeting is cut short when Chris asks Amanda to tend to the baby. Before she leaves, Magnini expresses his happiness for her becoming a mother, and says that motherhood transforms people. Amanda says that she was not transformed by motherhood. She has always been the same. When the meeting ends and Amanda comes out, her mother is glad that nothing untoward happened. She asks if Magnini apologized, but from what Amanda tells her, she becomes even angrier about the whole thing, especially when her daughter begins to defend Magnini. However, this isn't the only meeting Amanda had in mind. Later, she meets Raffaele Solicito in Gubbio. This is the place they were supposed to go on the day that Meredith was found dead. Now, after all these years, they are finally here together. Before catching up about their lives, they have a little chat about Magnini. Then she asks him about his life, and he reveals how the past has cast a shadow on his relationships and his career. Then she talks about a concert she attended with Meredith, which is also where she met Raffaele for the first time. Both remember that encounter fondly, which prompts Amanda to ask if he ever regrets meeting her. He confesses that he did sometimes, but not anymore. He wishes that she'd stayed at his place that morning, and all the other what-ifs that he has thought about over the years. She reveals that the only reason she went home that morning was because she wanted to wear a skirt for their trip to Gubbio. She wanted to look nice for something nice that he'd done for her. Later that evening, Amanda and Etta have a chat at the safe house. They discuss how difficult the prison visits were. Etta speaks of the guilt she would feel whenever she smiled or felt happy while her daughter was still in prison. Amanda commends her for braving that storm, because, being the mother of a daughter now, she doesn't know how, if at all, she would be able to bear it if her daughter were to go through something like that. Amanda talks about why she wanted to come to Italy. She thought she'd find some explanation or closure related to the case, but the experience has taught her that things are more complicated than that. Before leaving Italy, Amanda stops by the house. She looks at it from a distance and thinks about Meredith, about all the sides of Meredith that she got to know, and all the sides she didn't. At the end of the day, Amanda believes that she was the lucky one for not being in the house that night, and how unlucky Meredith was for the fate that befell her. While still processing her thoughts and feelings, she returns to her life, accepting that there will be people who believe her and those who don't, and that there is nothing she can do about what anyone thinks. So all she can do is live for herself. After Amanda gets in the car and drives away, the scene shifts to the church, where Don Saulo sits in the confessional, preparing to hear the person on the other side. We don't see this other person, but it is Magnini, and we don't get to hear what he has to say, but we do hear him crying. Does this mean that he feels guilty about prosecuting Amanda? Does he feel guilty for throwing an innocent person, or two, to prison? Are the tears for himself, or for Amanda? The ending suggests that Magnini's meeting with Amanda has changed his thoughts about her, and about how he approached the investigation and its prosecution. Part of that is true for real-life Magnini as well.